People pleasing is inauthentic manipulation disguised as niceness. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everybody. Thank you for joining. Be sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you would like more in-depth content relating to shadow work and inner child work. In today's video, I'm going to be diving deeper into people pleasing. What is it? Where does it come from? Why do we do it? And more importantly, how we can move past it. So, first of all, what is people pleasing? Well, people pleasing is an adaptation that we all run to a degree, and we may all use it to a degree in our general day-to-day lives. But the real issue is when we're using it in contexts where it doesn't serve us, or we're running it so excessively that this adaptation begins to become a large part of our identity. And that's not very serving for us, because if we are performing this adaptation so excessively, well, then it means that we may struggle to have an off switch with it and integrate and embody other aspects of ourselves, therefore bringing in more a complete and authentic experience within our life. So the way that people pleasing manifests to the surface is in the form of trying to keep the peace around you, avoiding conflict or confrontation, trying to keep people feeling a certain way, which most of the time is happy, calm, and satisfied. And generally, when we're running this adaptation, it means that we are minimizing some very important components of our life, such as saying no when we have to say no. Why wouldn't we want to say no? Is because saying no means that we may disappoint and upset someone. So we don't say no, we keep the peace and just say yes all the time, even if saying yes becomes exhausting and we're saying yes to shit that we don't even want to do. Another one is not setting a boundary. Why? Because if we set a boundary, again, it could incur a confrontation with someone, a disagreement, an argument, someone getting angry or upset. Other ways that people pleasing manifests is we actually struggle to accept other people when they may be in more negative states. So this means that if, let's say, your partner or loved one is sad and upset about something that they're going through, we can struggle to hold space for them and be with them in those moments without trying to give them unsolicited advice or try and control what they're feeling or get really uncomfortable whilst they're in their state and avoiding it completely. And this can show up, let's say, if you're in a romantic relationship and your partner is having a bad day, well, then you may give them unsolicited advice, trying to control how they're feeling. Just cheer up, don't be sad, or just avoiding them completely when they're in that state. And that can create some issues in the relationship, like a disconnection or resentment building up. Another very common thing that occurs with people that run a lot of people pleasing is because they may tend to say yes a lot, not set boundaries, not say no, it means that it leaves them more open and vulnerable to be taken advantage of and manipulated. So it's quite often that when someone is in a relationship dynamic like this, where let's say the partner is really crossing over the boundaries a lot and even being really abusive towards them, it means that that person who's on the receiving end of that may be in such a chronic state of fawn mode, which is like the nervous system response that manifests those people-pleasing behaviors and traits, that they're just not defending themselves. They're not saying no. They're not even like letting their partner or whoever it is know that they are displeased and it's not aligned for them to be on the receiving end of something like that. So yeah, people that run a lot of people pleasing can find themselves in situations like that. Also can find themselves struggling to excel in their career, to ask for a pay rise, to take more assertive action on certain things where it may lead to people around them getting uncomfortable about it. Like, let's say, if you choose to, call in new things in your life that are more aligned with you, let's say greater success, but you don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable around you, so you'll just like kind of stay small and you don't aim big. People pleasers will generally find themselves just following the crowd, more likely to be more agreeable towards others, so that they'll just kind of conform, less likely to be an anti-conformist, put it that way, and kind of be like, screw the system, I'm gonna do my own thing. More likely to just kind of go with the herd and say yes, and even if they're performing behaviors that don't serve them, let's say if it's like an excessive amount of drinking or something and they're in a social environment where everyone's like, come on, just have a drink, they'll be more likely to be like, okay, yes. If I say no, they'll think I'm weird and they won't accept me as part of the tribe, so I'll just drink it now and say yes to keep the peace and please everybody. So these are all just different examples of how people pleasing can manifest. And what I want to talk about now, because that's like talking about the surface of how people pleasing manifests, I just want to talk about commonly what you may find when you go a little bit deeper, right? And that is that even though all of these surface layer manifestations sound really negative and sounds like, it's like, why are they doing that to themselves? Like, why would someone be like that and subject themselves to that type of an experience, a relationship, saying yes all the time, letting people abuse them, just like drinking a lot, and even if they don't want to do it, whatever it is. And this is where we get into the positive intention of people pleasing. And if you've watched my video before this, which is there's no such thing as self-sabotage, you get an understanding of what I mean by positive intention for why we would do something like people pleasing. And the positive intention behind people pleasing is a form of self-protection or self-preservation in some way. So we have developed this strategy, which we've largely inherited from our ancestors. That who knows how many thousands of years people pleasing has been around for. But we may have directly observed it a lot within our family dynamic or even within our cultures. Like, some cultures are more likely to be people pleasers. And, I've heard a lot of people share certain things like, if you're kind of from Eastern Europe or Russia, you're more likely to be more blunt and be like, no, I do not want to do this. Whereas if you're like in, some other areas, you're more likely to say yes all the time and it's all happy and jolly and kind of putting on that type of a persona. So these are adaptations that we form in order to be accepted by others, because being lonely is not only a very emotionally painful experience, but it's actually very contradictory to our survival, because we're social beings and we need to have a tribe and a social group around us to meet those needs that we wouldn't be able to meet on our own. Because if at any point in history humans were completely isolated and by themselves, there's a very low chance that they were going to survive and make it out of that, which means we would become a people pleaser just so we can be accepted in a social environment, in a tribe, in a community, so we aren't abandoned, so we aren't rejected, just to ensure that those basic survival needs can be met, right? And this is why people can be bonded into these social dynamics that don't serve them, but they're still in them, because that really primitive basic human need within them is keeping them bonded there, even if they have to be a people pleaser to be there. Because if they weren't, they would probably be saying no a lot and disrupting the familiar peace within that social dynamic, but they'll stay there just to increase the odds and the chances of their survival. So to be accepted, right? Being rejected can be a very emotionally painful experience. It may incur like a grief, because some of these relationships will be broken, and that can be very painful. Not only that, but if we're in like a new environment, like we don't know people, like it's a new job, we just, sure, I'll clean that, we're going to be more likely to exude these sort of traits. And like I said, we all do this to a degree, but the real question for you all is, how often are you doing it, and whether or not it's getting in the way of you doing the sort of stuff that you want to do that's going to make your life better, right? And that's up for you to decide. Another reason why we would run people pleasing is, and this is very common for people that have grown up in these sort of environments as children, is if their caregivers, their parents, basically people that they are dependent on, especially when you're a child, because you're not completely independent at that age, and you need people around you to support you and keep you safe and give you resources. I mean, even as an adult, I don't agree with the whole notion that, we can be independent. We are interdependent throughout our entire lives. But if during those early developmental years, your parents, caregivers basically weren't able to regulate their own emotions, let's say your dad would get really angry, your mom was going through depression and anxious a lot, and as a result of their dysregulated nervous system, it meant that some of your needs couldn't be met, whether they were emotional or physical type needs, or like survival, safety needs, resources needs, whatever it was. If as a result of their dysregulated nervous system, some of your needs weren't able to be met, well then, as an adaptation to that, you can try and control their emotions, try and make them happy, do things, be their helper, really give them a lot, just to try and balance out their nervous system more. Because if their nervous system is better balanced, there's a higher chance that they could then meet your needs, which will make you feel more loved, safe, accepted, whatever it was. So this is a pattern that we can develop, which it sits under the same category as people pleasing, but it's like being overly responsible. It's like, in order for your needs to be met, you have to be overly responsible for others because they're unable to meet their own needs, so that they could meet yours, right? And that's very common, right? That's actually a way that I developed people pleasing to a degree, being overly responsible. I was the man of the house at 8 years old. There was like some kind of needs that I had to meet with people around me just so I could feel more safe. So that's another reason why. And again, it can just be through like very direct experiences with, like, if your parents had a really negative relationship with like certain emotions, let's say like sadness or anger or something like that. And if at any time you felt it or your siblings felt it, they would, judge, criticize you, shut you down, don't be sad, don't be weak, whatever it was. Then you can classify like those parts of yourself or the parts of people that you've observed being treated in that way as unacceptable, as unworthy, as not good enough. So then what you would do is then you have that same relationship with those emotions that you have within you, and then you'll project that same relationship you have with yourself because of what you saw with others. Meaning that if someone is sad around you, you're just gonna like, oh, that's not a good emotion to feel. And your response to that could be to try and like control their feelings, give them unsolicited advice. Don't be sad, be happy. There's people around the world that are worse off than you. Like just saying these really, let's be honest, shitty forms of advice to people just because we can't deal with them being in feeling and being present with whatever they're feeling, because we reject those feelings within ourselves. Therefore, we reject those same feelings within others because those feelings within us were rejected when we were young. Okay, hope that makes sense. That's another very common manifestation of people pleasing, and what's deeper to it is like anytime someone is expressing some of these emotions to us, we are observing a part of us that we reject, and that's very confronting. And it's very if we don't accept that, it's going to be very hard for us to be present with that if we can't even be present with our own, right? So then we'll then run this response, try and control it, go back into the cave, I don't want to see you. That's better, put a smile on your face. So if you're struggling with people pleasing, it's really first important for you to understand where it comes from, because even though I'm throwing out a very few common examples of how we can develop this type of adaptation, it's important for you to make that link and that connection, because it can come from very different reasons, and it's going to really help you to gain that deeper understanding, because then you're going to understand why that part of you is there and why they're doing what they're doing, and that can bring in a lot more self-compassion, because you're going to have to live with this part of you who wants to be a serial people pleaser all the time. And if you can understand why they have this compulsion and this urge to do what they do, and struggle to be comfortable with negative feelings, say no, set boundaries, whatever it is, it's going to help you connect with them a lot better and regulate the nervous system, bring it into more of a calm state. This is obviously with your relationship with yourself, but I'm using this terminology as if you're speaking to a different part of you, therefore giving you the confidence and the ability to, let's say no, set a boundary, or just hold space and be present with someone else. So this is the next part of the video I want to talk about, and that's regulating the nervous system. So when you're running people pleasing, when this compulsion, this autopilot program just kicks off and runs, your nervous system goes into a dysregulated state. Basically, it's just in a state where it's perceiving some type of a threat. Therefore, it generates this energy for you to operate differently, so you can navigate the threat, so that when the threat's gone, then you can bring your nervous system back to baseline. But the thing is, if we're just constructing these sort of threats out of thin air due to self-inflicted psychological stress, or due to how our ego and our identity is perceiving information around us, like, here's someone upset and sad, I'm going to take it personal straight away because it means that I've done something wrong, because they should be happy all the time. And if they're not happy, it means that I'm not being a good friend. And okay, I've got to control how they're feeling now so that I can make them happy, because when they're happy, then I am a good friend and I am a good person. I am worthy. Okay, now I'm safe again because they feel happy again, right? So when your nervous system is in this state, it goes into a state called fawn mode. Now there's 4 different states of the nervous system that you'll be in when you're in a dysregulated state. The first 3 that are very common is fight, so fighting off threats; flight, running away from threats; freeze, freezing up, okay, so shutting down, playing dead, as you commonly see within the animal world; and fawn. So fawn would be, think about it like an extreme example of it is if someone's got a gun to your head and they're going, please, don't kill me, I'll do whatever you want. That's what fawn mode, okay, would be, right? So when your nervous system's in this state, that's when you're going to run the people pleasing as a way to regulate it and bring it back to baseline. But if you're not using it, like I said, in a context where it doesn't serve you, because I'm not going to sit here and say, don't ever people please ever. There may be a time and a place where it may serve you to do that, right? And this is why having a good relationship with these different parts of you and being able to use your masks at different times when it may serve you, and never something to completely write off and throw away. Because the reality is, we live in a world that isn't completely embracing an authentic existence, and a lot of people use masks as a way to navigate their general day-to-day lives, and a lot of people aren't completely authentic all the time. So there may be some situations where people are very manipulative and perhaps more malevolent, or their intention may not be best for you at heart, where it may serve you just have access to some of these masks that you can use if you need them, if that's what's going to be the best thing for you to do. So when your nervous system gets into this fawn mode, this state, think of that now, it's a different part of you that's come out. And what you want to avoid doing is just consciously judging and criticizing this part of you who's doing it, going, why are you saying, yeah, stop doing that, you're stupid, blah, 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 why don't I have the courage? You're going to have to approach this part of you with curiosity. And like I said, just getting an understanding of where they come from, what they've been through that's generated this response that they use so, they use a lot as a way to navigate these sort of situations. What is it that they're perceiving in that moment that's creating value for them to run people pleasing? What's the threat? Even though if there's no logical threat there, like, no, I'm fine, there's nothing. Well, what is the threat that you're perceiving? Even though if in objective reality it doesn't make complete sense, right? Once you get more of an understanding of those things, that's what can then build more of a container of self-compassion for this part of you. And this is something that I teach in my programs, how to foster a better relationship between your higher self and your shadow. Because this part of you who's got this perspective and is perceiving these threats and wants to run this people pleasing would be a part of your shadow that may originate to your inner child, where they first originally learnt it from due to experiences that they had at that time in the past. So what you can then do as your higher self is offer some loving, compassionate support to this part of you, building a container of safety to regulate your nervous system. There's various techniques that you can do to do that, whether it's visualizations or somatic techniques to bring your nervous system back to calm. And then from that point, giving yourself the guidance that you're going to need to be able to respond differently, say no, set a boundary, hold space, be present with someone that's going to serve you much better at that time. Now, this takes practice. I know the aspect of this video where I'm giving you the advice of how to move through this is very basic and simple. I've intentionally kept it that way because in order for you to get more of an in-depth look at how to deprogram people pleasing, it has to come from something that's personal for you. It has to really resonate with you and your story, because that's when it's really going to make the most amount of sense. So if you're someone who struggles with people pleasing, if it's just running so excessively in your life right now, and if it's getting in the way of you living more of a complete and authentic experience of life, I invite you to check out my masterclass called the 5 Steps to Healing. This can give you more of an in-depth blueprint of how to move through the cycles of healing to be able to deprogram people pleasing and heal any trauma and wounds that's driving and manifesting it. I'll put the link below to that. That's a free masterclass. I run it every Tuesday at 6 o'clock Sydney time for the time being. I also have 4 more spots remaining in my next Shadow Mastery intake beginning February 12th. So if you're interested in learning more about what I do in a more in-depth way, you can check out the link below. If you have any questions about it, if you want to learn more about it, you can also book in a call with me where we can have a bit of a chat to see if it's for you. I'll put a link for that below as well. All right, so this was an introductory video to people pleasing. I'll cover more videos on people pleasing and fawn mode and over responsibility moving forward. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure that you like the video. Drop a comment if you could resonate with this or if you struggle with people pleasing, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.